Good evening and welcome to Sport at Prime. The 11th of June will forever go down in the history books in South Africa. And in case you need any reminding, let me tell you why. 10 years ago today, the eyes of the world descended upon South Africa to witness the very first FIFA World Cup on African soil. The event, for some, was the opportunity of a lifetime and an opportunity to prove that Africa and South Africa in particular could host a successful World Cup. Minenhle Hlela looks back at that magical tournament.
The opening ceremony of the 2010 FIFA World Cup was a true celebration of African culture. Traditional colors and sounds filled the Johannesburg air, preparing everyone for a truly unique World Cup, one like no other. The world's eyes quickly focused on the pitch as Bafana historically opened the tournament against Mexico at the newly revamped FNB Stadium known as Soccer City.
I must be honest with you. We were all very nervous, and anxiety was too much. But as soon as we walked on the pitch for a warm up, the stadium erupted, and it was just emotional for most of us.
I think when we walked out onto that field against Mexico for the warm up, I saw a couple of players shed a tear and become quite emotional, and I think then it really hit us, and it hit a couple of the players to what it actually meant to the team and to the nation.
90,000 fans packed themselves into the calabash to witness history, and history was made as Sphiwe Tshabalala scored the continent's most famous goal, sending the crowd and the country into hysteria.
As soon as the ball left Pela's foot to KG, I started making that run. And, the pass, the speed, the weight on the ball was perfect. My first touch was perfect. The technique. And as soon as, the ball left the boot, I felt it because I connected very well. And, I was happy as it went in. I went to my own zone. I was just dreaming. It felt like a dream.
That match ended 1-1 as South Africa and Mexico were forced to share the spoils, but it was a taste of what was to come throughout the rest of the month as the world's best players put on a spectacular day in and day out. Current SAFA President Danny Jordan, who was the local organizing committee CEO at the time, says the world refused to believe that South Africa could successfully host the tournament. He says it was the doubt, that disbelief, that pushed them to prove all the critics wrong.
When you talk about planning and execution, throughout that phase, we had the issue of the doubt. And this is about Afro-pessimism. It's about doubting the ability of all Africans and African countries in particular. That even if we waited 100 years, 100 years later, the world was still not convinced that we have the capacity, the ability to deliver the World Cup. So it worked so much harder because we couldn't allow anything to slip.
Many people have described Sphiwe Tshabalala's goal exactly 10 years ago right here at the iconic FNB Stadium as the first and probably the most memorable moment about the FIFA World Cup in 2010. Now Shaba struck the ball around this area, to be exact, into those nets. Obviously, he might have done it better, but that's besides the point. Now, there was so much doubt on whether South Africa would be able to host such a huge sporting event. FIFA described the edition as one of the best they'd ever seen. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Minenhle Hlela in Johannesburg.
Incredible to see those visuals, to see that opportunity, Minenhle Hlela, to stand at the FNB field on the pitch to kick the ball into the net. That not many people can say they've done. You put a lot of work into this week, and the work has been outstanding as we celebrate 2010 once again. You had the opportunity to sit down with the then CEO of the local organizing committee, Danny Jordan, Take me through how this week has been for you in particular, looking back at this incredible moment and what it was like to be at the FNB Stadium. What a magical week for South Africa.
Sure, it started last week. I think around about this time last week where I realized that 10 years ago, we were preparing, and I just started off in my career. I think I was 2 years in. I was still a desk writer behind the desk, and it just, it took me back, and the excitement that was happening around that time, specifically if we're working in media, the plans that were being put out there and what were being tackled. And it just took me back there. The goosebumps obviously just came rushing back, and the memories that happened specifically on that day. For some odd reason, I wasn't working on that day. And you had
a wonderful boss at that stage to let you off on the opening day.
I was supposed to work, but it ended up and I wasn't working. And my older brother, who came from my home province, KZN, he had tickets, luckily enough, and I had to drop him at the stadium and pick him up later. But it was just, it's one of those moments where you pinch yourself and you ask, did that really happen? Even 10 years later, you just look in the mirror and you think that something historic happened 10 years ago, and it's still in disbelief that it actually happened.
This entire week we've been chatting to former players, administrators, referees. You had a chance to chat to Bongani Khumalo, famously scoring a goal in that World Cup. What did he have to say about the event and looking back?
His case was very special. I think his mother, he pointed out his mother had died just before the Confederations Cup kicked off, and he hadn't told a lot of people of what specifically happened. And I think, exactly a year later, about 5 or 6 days to his mother's passing, he was able to score that goal against France in that 2-1 win. And that was his only goal, his international goal. So it had, it was something that was very personal to him. And the way he described it, just for those 2 seconds after scoring, and he realized that he's put Bafana ahead because we desperately needed to win that match and we needed goals. So, he got the ball rolling, and he said it was almost so real that for 2 seconds it felt like he was with his mother in heaven or in a different planet. And that's, that was a very touching story, and it was a touching goal for him.
What a moment for him. Danny O'Donnell, the then CEO of the local organising committee, you had a chance to sit down with him at Safa House as well. He certainly put a lot of work in as well to bring that World Cup to South Africa 10 years ago. The point that he made, that it had to be perfect to prove all the critics wrong.
And what it made it difficult, if you look back, the economic global meltdown happened in 2008. So that created even more doubts, because being a third world country, will we have the finances? Will we be able to put the infrastructure that was required, the transportation, the planes, the airports, the Gautrain that was being put together? So it was a lot of concern on the financial side. And we pulled through all of that, because everybody, Marc, played their part. Every single South African that was involved in that World Cup played their part. And like Danny Jojan said, because of the doubt that was created, they wanted to make sure that they wanted to prove that it could actually be done by a country at the tip of the African continent. Because we had England, who had lost out to Germany, where we came second in that World Cup bid. Then it was moved to just Africa. So there were other countries who desperately wanted this opportunity, and it came to us. And if you remember the headlines of how high the crime rate was at the time, and it's no excuse, but we all had to get our ducks in a row, and we certainly did that, and we delivered a World Cup that will be memorable for many people. And if you look at the teams that came, Messi on the rise, Argentina at that time coached by the one and only Diego Maradona, who is the benchmark of World Cups, along with Pelé, the benchmark player of what the World Cups were about. And then obviously the Spanish team that, when you looked at it on paper, looked amazing, and nobody thought that they will be able to make it, because over the years they've choked so many times. It was just, there are so many stories that came out of the World Cup, and being the first one on the African continent, so colorful the way it was just magical.
It certainly was. Minenhle Hlela, thank you very much for your time, giving us some feedback as to what took place today, 10 years ago. And we know that 2010 certainly was a very different look and feel than what we are experiencing now in 2020. South Africa and the rest of the world experiencing some real difficulties. What a better opportunity to go back in time 10 years ago and relive that moment, relive, arguably still to this day, the greatest FIFA World Cup to ever be hosted. And we did it, South Africa. We put that together. The local organising committee mixed up with the Madiba magic, mixed up with the South African fans, the culture, The noises, the sounds, the flavors and the tastes truly put on the greatest World Cup that the footballing community has ever seen. We'll show you more to celebrate the 2010 anniversary in the second hour of the show. And when we return, Parliament has 2 years to amend the Electoral Act of 1998. The law now has to be changed to allow independent candidates to run in provincial and national elections. That and more on 405.
The opening ceremony of the 2010 FIFA World Cup was a true celebration of African culture.